Good afternoon, everybody. We welcome you to this CME lecture today. And today's lecture topic is Bridging the Testing Gap in HIV, a case-based discussion which will be very important for your clinical practice, I think. And I cordially invite our Venerology Madam, Dr. Jayadari Ranatunga, to present this case-based discussion and enlighten us. Thank you.
Very good afternoon to all of you and welcome all of you on behalf of the STD clinic. This is our presentation is based on bridging the gap in HIV testing, because there is a national target of ending AIDS in 2025. So early diagnosis of HIV is the most important factor if we want to end the AIDS epidemic in 2025. So when testing is considered, actually in Raghava Hospital, I must say with many thanks to all of you that the referrals to us is quite satisfactory, and we have diagnosed many cases after attending to the referrals by you. And we are stressing again the importance of testing early. And the presentation will be done by my colleague Dr. Iruka Rajapaksha, and continue the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So the bridging the gap in HIV. Actually there is a discrepancy between number of people living with HIV and number diagnosed and linked to care. So how we can narrow this gap with the HIV testing. These are the trends in HIV current situation in Sri Lanka during last decade. Actually, you can see 2019 we have diagnosed all over the country 439 new patients with HIV, and you can see gradually there is an increase in number of diagnoses. This is only not due to more and more people getting HIV. What happening is more and more people access to care and they come for testing. So we diagnose more people. That's why number rise. But the yellow line is 77, you can see in 2019, that's a female. Number of female patients, we can see it's kind of static line. But you can see we diagnose more and more male patients. And I can mention there are more and more young male. So, you know the HIV and AIDS is the two end of the one spectrum. So, the HIV is the virus itself. So, the predominant mode of transmission is by sexual transmission. So, the people are continuing to have sex. So, I don't think we would be able to end HIV transmission in world. So, it's not an easy task in avoid HIV transmission till we practice sex. So what we can do is ending AIDS, because it's other end, that's an advanced disease stage. So the UNAIDS set some target goals to us, saying they mention it as achieve 95 targets by 2025. So we as National STD AIDS Control Program, we also work towards this target. So 95% people living with HIV know their status. Of them, we linked 95% of them to treatment, and after that 95% are virally suppressed and living near normal life. What happened in Sri Lanka? This is 2019 data. And at the end of 2019, 68% of people living with HIV in community in Sri Lanka were about their HIV status. And of them, 80% linked to treatment, and among them, 86% are virally suppressed, and that means they are continuing their daily activities, most of them without any interruption. So you can see we need to increase from 27% to reach 95% targets. What we can do to achieve these goals? We have to test more and then link them all positives to care. Importance of diagnosing HIV early. We know after diagnosing HIV early, we can link them to care. So the early detection, fast action mean engage or retain them in care and prescribe antiretroviral therapy and achieve viral suppression. Since 2017, now we are talking about something called U equal U. That means Undetectable mean untransmittable. If somebody is undetectable from, if their serum viral load is undetectable, they cannot transmit sexually to somebody else. So U equal U is there. So that's why we always stress on achieved on viral suppression. And if somebody is virally suppressed, their prognosis is also very good, and like they can have near normal life. So reason for low first 95, that means why they don't know their status. Still people have very low knowledge about HIV. They don't have good perception about their risk behaviors, and still there's a lot of stigma discrimination attached for risk groups. You know, in Sri Lanka also, majority of transmission we see among men who have sex with men. Then it goes to other risk groups like drug users, transgender people, sex workers. So there's still lot of huge stigma and discrimination attached toward these groups, so they don't come for testing easily. And still the healthcare workers also hold lot of discrimination towards some discrimination towards people living with HIV. Incidents are reporting, and lack of access for testing services. Till recently, HIV testing is available in like district STD clinic. So you have to attend to STD clinic to get HIV testing, or either you have to go to a private sector. But the things change, and in healthcare setting also, most of time HIV is still not considered as differential diagnosis in some patient presentations. Okay, and here I mentioned cost for patient. It is not only the financial cost or the what on the jobs, but the diagnosis of HIV, they have to bear a huge cost. There are social support services, sometimes they relationship issues. It's a huge cost to them after knowing their HIV status, and fear of confidentiality. You know, we correlate clinical features, clinical presentation with the CD4 cell count of the patient. CD4 cell count is an indicator of immunity level of the patient. So we monitor disease stage by doing CD4 correlating with the clinical features. So you can see like nearly 50% of patients diagnosed at the CD4 lower than 350. That's mean late stage of disease. And among them you can see in 2019, 32%. That's mean like 1/3 diagnosed at very late stage. That means CD4 was less than 200 cells. So that's mean nearly 50% cases in Sri Lanka diagnosed at late stages. So what's problem with late diagnosis? You know, when they present with late stages, they have several opportunistic infection. They can be having tuberculosis, toxoplasma, or several cryptococcal meningitis, several opportunistic infection. It's very difficult to start a patient on antiretroviral therapy when they have like opportunistic infection. So we have to delay antiretroviral initiation till we manage the opportunistic infection. There can be lot of side effects, drug and drug interactions, and some of the drugs we use to treat this opportunistic infection difficult to find and very cost to health sector. And after starting and after excluding all the opportunistic infection, when we start on treatment, there's a chance some opportunistic infection, masked or hidden opportunistic infection can come out with a like severe manifestation with the immune reconstitution with the patient. So it's challenging to manage a patient with HIV AIDS stages. So what we can do, therefore rapid initially that was only available at district STD clinic, but now the rapid HIV testing is introduced to all base hospital to above level with aim to improve HIV testing in healthcare setting. So in our hospital also we do the HIV testing, and we handed over some kits to the night lab as well, so that to the hospital also when we are close. And we are also distributing test kit to Velasara Chest Hospital, Kandana and Kiribatkota. So they also have rapid HIV testing at their hospital premises. Indications for HIV testing. So obviously the clinical indications, and if there's a risk behaviors or any risk assessment of a partner, and we do the HIV testing as contact tracing and some for the screening program, and sometimes patient present voluntary and ask for the HIV test. And also, you know, in occupational health exposure, post-exposure prophylaxis. We offer post-exposure prophylaxis now for the occupational exposure as well as sexual exposures as well. AIDS defining condition, I know we are all familiar because we never miss HIV test in a AIDS defining condition. Because all the TB patients now screen for HIV. If somebody present with PCP or cerebral toxoplasmosis, anyway the patient tested for HIV because these are AIDS defining conditions and all the doctors are familiar. And CMV retinitis example. Cervical cancer as well, it's also AIDS defining condition. But when it comes to HIV indicator conditions, sometimes there's a chance we can miss HIV indicator conditions. So you can see a list like sometimes some hematological issues and sometimes the dermatological problems, even seborrheic dermatitis, psoriasis which is not responding easily to treatment, then you have to think about HIV status of this patient. So even bacterial pneumonia, some people, most of our late diagnosis patient gave a history of presenting to GP or OPD here and there with the recurrent respiratory tract infections. And even don't forget, if all gentlemen present with dementia, if you can't find a cause, just send a sample to test for HIV, because the most senior patient we have is now 74 or 5 years old. We diagnose him at the age of 68. Okay, so age is not a something, just test for HIV if you suspect. Those are the HIV indicator and HIV defining conditions. So HIV test to all individual with, as I mentioned, HIV indicative disease and the risk groups, and any pregnant mother at the last trimester at the time of delivery, if they are not tested for HIV, not recorded in their antenatal clinic, you have to do the order HIV test. And if a mother who give a risk behavior or a partner, some example drug use or something, then it's worth to repeat the HIV testing at the last trimester as well. How to order a test? This is simple, but I thought of mentioning it again. Send 3 cc of blood with the pathology form, that's mean H359, our normal form for full blood count, and with the indicating patient name, BHT, and please mention the requesting doctor's name and ward number, then because we are diverging the result to that relevant doctor most of time. Okay, and if patient need to be discharged, make sure to keep clear record of patient contact details, then we can contact the patient. Especially for the HIV testing, you do not need detailed counseling. Just mention as the routine investigation with the other routine investigation, taking blood for HIV. There's no need of detailed counseling for HIV. Just the verbal consent is enough. All HIV reports should be handled confidentially. When this blood, when a MLT of a laboratory or a STD laboratory MLT, when they do and they find HIV positive results, what they do is they inform to the laboratory medical officer or the STD clinic medical officer. Then the medical officer should inform the relevant medical officer or the consultant from the ward. Positive rapid test is not a confirmation of HIV. You have to need to arrange confirmatory test through STD clinic. Local data. This is 2020 Ragam STD clinic data. Despite the COVID outbreak and travel restrictions, though, we have diagnosed total 52 new patients last year. Among them, 20 were voluntarily presented to us for HIV testing, and we, because you know the key population, sometimes they don't come out, so we every week conduct 1 or 2 outreach programs. So we go to some places, or sometimes we arrange outreach programs for the gay people or the beach boys, drug users. So the 50 were from outreach programs, and as Madam mentioned, last year, when I see the book, we have received nearly 1,100 ward samples from this institution. That's very good, like for ward patients. And we have diagnosed 17 new patients with HIV. The only thing is, unfortunately, at very late stage. And if you see the data, among these 52 patients, 44 were male, only 8 female. And among these 44 male, only 7 men had heterosexual behaviors. All others were basically men who have sex with men or bisexual behaviors. So let's move to case histories. 66-year-old female, married mother of 2 children. There was no obvious risk factor in the history. Only thing, 15 years back, she worked as a housemaid in Kuwait for just for 5 years. And she was evaluated for recurrent chest infections at GP and a chest hospital also during last 2 years. And once treated for bronchopneumonia, evaluated for TB, and TB was negative. And she was admitted recently to this hospital with chest pain, and it was a non-STEMI and managed as non-STEMI. While she was involved, developed bronchopneumonia, and they noticed thrombocytopenia. Then sent for the HIV testing. Test became positive. CD4 was very low, 82 cells, and she has a huge viral load. It was more than 200 million copies per 1 milliliter of blood. And bronchopneumonia was managed as PCP. We initiated ARV rapidly, screened for opportunistic infections, negative for cytomegalovirus, cryptococcal and all, but thrombocytopenia worsened. Day 6 of ARV, she died, and she died, it's a AIDS-related death with disseminated intravascular coagulation. She died. So actually, because she is 66 years old, with a married and living with husband, nobody suspect about HIV, even though she recurrently, last 2 years, she recurrently go here and there for respiratory tract infections. This is the case history too. 35-year-old married male, father of 2 children. He worked in a grocery in a suburb, Colombo suburb, and marital partner from Nuwara. And he has noticed weight loss from 62 to 44 kilograms. He was evaluated at National Hospital for weight loss. There was a past history of syphilis infection treated at Kaluboville STD clinic. That was on 2013, and at that time when we traced the reports, his HIV screening was negative. Then he attended to private sector hospital to seek advice for evening pyrexia headache. There they tested for HIV, became positive, then they referred to us STD clinic Ragam. His CD4 was 44 and viral load again above 1 million copies. MP became positive for HIV. At that time, she was breastfeeding for 4-month-old baby at the time of diagnosis. Maternal antenatal screening trace with Nuwara RD, it was negative at the 12 weeks of POA. So this is a possible exposure during pregnancy. Last unprotected sex was 6 months back. So she acquired this at last trimester, but luckily the baby was negative. But you know that the child is breastfeeding and no point of doing HIV rapid test or ELISA, because anyway he is having maternal antibodies. So we ordered DNA PCR, it became negative and breastfeeding stopped, and child was started on exposure prophylaxis. Later when we tested, the baby was negative. Elder child also negative. This patient, tuberculosis, cytomegalovirus, toxo, cryptococcal studies came negative. You know, like in MSM, who in having HIV, AIDS disease, even the CMV, IgM antibody become positive. It's not like you can't come to a clinical diagnosis of CMV disease with just a positive, because most of MSM people have CMV, IgM positive on their serum. So ARV initiated. Even this patient CMV antibodies were negative. ARV initiated. 2 weeks after, he presented with high fever, headache, drowsiness, and at that time LP performed and found CMV viremia, and he has CMV encephalitis. IV ganciclovir started, and it's also ended as AIDS-related death. But the thing is, like, if we were able to diagnose him a bit earlier, we would have prevent like his death, as well as this young woman getting HIV, because the case ended as a young widow with HIV and 2 children, and there's a no breadwinner for the family as well. Third one, there's a development officer, married male with 2 children, 50 years. He had diabetes and he returned from Italy 2015. He had recurrent balanoposthitis for last 3 years. Had a skin rash, patchy hair loss for 1 year, chronic cough, low-grade fever and headache for 4 months duration. Day 1 of the admission to the hospital with cough and SOB, transferred to ICU care. HIV infection confirmed. CD4 was 16, viral load was more than 500. His diagnosis was he had PCP pneumonia, Kaposi sarcoma, and I think most probably, though he has diabetic, the what managed as recurrent balanoposthitis with the fluconazole lances because he had recurrent genital HSC lesions. And he was started on antiretroviral. After again he had a immune reconstitution, he developed again a neurological manifestation with focal weakness. Toxoplasma IgM antibody became positive. We started treatment for toxo. Now, after 3 months of treatment, he is responding well to treatment. CD4 became 98 and viral load also 48. I mean, like, this is after 3 months. So, we expect the like undetectable viral load usually after 6 months of treatment. So, he will definitely reach that. And Kaposi sarcoma lesion cleared. HSV recurrences are now less. Focal weakness is still there but gradually improving. Last case. 28 years old male, married male for 1 year. He admitted to surgical unit with, this happened few years back, okay. He admitted to surgical unit with right shoulder abscess. But he gave a history to doctor and he had a herpes zoster lesion 2 months back. So the doctor thought of HIV and ordered HIV. So his HIV became positive, CD4 was 304 and viral load is not very high. MP screen, though married for 1 year, she was negative. It's a serodiscordant couple. They have a regular follow-up. He is adherent with his treatment. So I mentioned about U equal U. There's like if they plan the pregnancy. Now he is on antiretroviral for 3 years. CD4 is near normal like ours, 852. Viral load undetectable. And planned pregnancy. Now have a healthy baby of 6 months old. And when with unprotected sex, they can't transmit it to their partner if they are undetectable. So, let's try and normalize HIV testing. Never hesitate to do a HIV test because never get discouraged. That's mean, last year we received more than 1,000 blood samples, only 17 became positive, but it's a high number. So, by not ordering tests, I think we are doing like we are contributing the death of our patient despite having free and effective treatment freely available in the country. And the last message, please remember this rapid test or any HIV test, this is just screening for HIV. It's not the alternative for STI screening. If a patient need to be screened for STI, you have to send to STD clinic. Even if a rapid test negative, if you have strongly suspect HIV, you can send patient to venereologist for evaluation. Needle fix, if we are close, you can ask for a rapid test, but earliest possible day, please attend to STD clinic for further evaluation. And all patients who belong to risk groups, HIV testing is not enough because all the STIs increase the acquisition rate for HIV, so they need STI screening. Thank you, and we are happy to answer any of your questions.
Can you please add a few lines on pre-exposure prophylaxis also?
Yeah, so if somebody has a healthcare worker, if had something prick injury or something, like we don't know the HIV status of the patient, like risk is very low if you are wear gloves. So that if you see like when consider hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV is having the least risk. It's like 0.3%. 0.3% mean if the index patient having untreated HIV, very high viral load, and without gloves you got a prick injury. Okay, if you wearing gloves, it reduce 60% chance. Okay, because when HIV is not very viable virus, so the viral load get down. So if something happen, you have to inform the index patient and take a blood sample and do a HIV rapid test. If HIV rapid test is negative, considering if the patient is not belong to high risk group, then we can think about whether we need prophylaxis or not. So the prick injury, like direct prick, deep prick is high risk, but the mucosal splash are very, very low risk. If I mention you like, because what we do in a healthcare work exposure, we do a rapid test in our clinic. That's determine HIV 1 and 2 antigen antibody combo test. Usually we say there's a window period. No, actually there's a window period, but now this fourth generation rapid test, this antigen, it detect P24 antigen. So sometimes it start to become positive even from antigen line become to start from day 12 of the infection. So we rarely miss now the positive patients, and it's 99% sensitive and 99% 7% specific, these the nowadays rapid tests. So always come with the patient sample, and we do the baseline evaluation of a healthcare worker, then do the rapid test, then considering the clinical scenario we think about post exposure prophylaxis.
There is post exposure and pre-exposure as well, is for their knowledge.
Yeah. So that's for the high risk group. So initially we didn't have this facility, but last 2 years we have, like, if somebody present, like this is for the healthcare worker. No, if somebody come with after to a mostly sometimes with to a GP practices or somewhere with the post-exposure sexual exposure, like having a risky sex behavior with somebody, with maybe a gay young man presented without condom. So at our clinic, if all of them if presented with 72 hours post-exposure prophylaxis for sexual exposure also available nowadays. And what madam want to prescribe is, if you see some young patient or somebody who is continue to practice high risk behavior, because we see a MSM trend in our country now, especially for the high risk people. Now we give pre-exposure prophylaxis as well. Like we are putting them on a kind of a drug for like till they continue their sexual behavior, because having HIV is a huge burden to healthcare sector, rather than putting them on a 1 pill per day to, if they continue to have unprotected sex and if they transmit.
Do we need the consent from the patient to proceed testing?
No, just inform. If they refuse, we can't do. If they refuse, actually we can't test. Otherwise, like you are doing full blood count, just mention the test and you don't need any written consent or anything. But like in your setting, if a patient can't take decision, then if it is clinically indicated for the benefit of the patient, you can take that decision in ICU setting. It's depend on the regimen. Like nowadays, because it's available, initially Global Fund gave us the drugs, but now the Sri Lankan government, but all this PEPSA, everything, PEPSA, PEP, and but PrEP, the pre-exposure prophylaxis, still not the government giving its. Nobody have to pay. It's freely available for the patients either through the government or NGO, but the antiretroviral therapy government, and our 55% of our patients, I think 55% on the baseline regimen. That's not very expensive.
5,000 to 6,000.
Like, for a 1 month life. But if somebody is like defaulting, and because this condition easily can develop resistance, then if we go to second, third line regimen, it's very expensive.
Dr. Sepalika has asked, can a person in the community go to a STD clinic directly and get the HIV testing done?
Yes, of course, because like they can voluntarily come. You don't have to go through OPD or somewhere. You can directly walk into STD clinic anywhere, because we have 30 STD clinic island wide and branch clinic as well. They can walk into clinic and get a STD test or HIV screening rapid test.
If someone wants to get it done from the private sector, how much it will cost?
It's depend on the institution, according to my knowledge. So now the private sector also, most of the hospital using this determine that, sorry for the mention in the trade name, that test. I think they cost, some institution, they cost around 1,000 rupees for HIV rapid test, not very expensive, but ideally the cost for a strip is something less than 400. It won't cost more than 400 rupees, but it's depend on the institution. And if they ask for the HIV and syphilis both combo at the private sector, I think the like 400 cost it 700, but they can give a cost.
Actually, we have started giving the rapid test kits to general practitioners. So we had a system, and still we have that. And some of the GPs are registered under our system, and they get
So we distribute general practitioners also rapid test kits. So if somebody is interested, because these patients at the grassroots level seen by most of time general practitioners, so we have a system. So GP can register with our clinic and they can get freely rapid test kits, and like they can cost, like we distribute it freely. They can charge a small amount from patient whatever they wish and arrange rapid test, and if something is positive they can refer to us.
There's I don't know what this is, my knowledge is not so good in IT. There's a pulse clinic. It's called the pulse clinic. If you download this app into your mobile, so you can get registered through the pulse clinic and then order the necessary number of test kits and get it from our STD clinic. It's pulse clinic. Thank you.
And there's another website, like it's also handled by national program for young patient. If some young in a youth center or young youth clinic or in your GP practice, if young patient present who's worried about a kind of risky behavior, his risk for STD, there's an app called Know For Sure. They can go to that website, so they ask questions and they can type and assess their risk level. If they want, they can get an appointment to STD clinic, Colombo like, so that it's also available now. Know For Sure. Thank you.
In the absence of any more questions, we will end the lecture at this point. We sincerely thank Dr. Jayadari Ranatunga and Dr. Iruka Rajapaksha, both madams, for giving us this case-based discussion, which was very enlightening to the clinical practice, and especially mentioning all the available resources for testing as general practitioners in the country. So thank you very much for participating in this CME lecture. Thank you.